Good. How are you?
Okay, terrific. It looks like we have all the members of the board. So I think we should open the meeting. We have two applications this evening. And we're going to start, the first one we're going to start with is the 3840 Parsonage Street. And I'd like the board members to identify them. So I'll just start with myself. I'm William Rice. Stephen, maybe you go next.
I'm Steve Miranda.
Harold,
Harold Axelrod.
Chris,
Keeley.
and Judy. There you are.
Meyer.
Judy Meyer, that's the board. We have a full board this evening. So I'd like to open the meeting and let's get started. Appreciate everybody getting on the call. We're going to start with Christopher Gogola. Did I say that right, Chris?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. We're going to start with your application first.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Like I said, all the board members are here. In normal times, even if they weren't, we only need 3 members to make a ruling on the application. And as we normally do with these applicants in the village, we're going to declare this request as a type 2 action under seeker. It requires no further environmental review. We do have correspondence from the neighbors. And we have, I'll let everyone know what we have in our package. I think all the board members have the package, but the first item we have is the denial of the building permit that Bill put together, our building inspector. And I'm sure the applicant has that. There was also a legal notice put out for this meeting in the newspapers. Maybe we'll just hold that up so people can see it. There's also a memorandum that describes why the application was denied. And we have a site plan, which was in our packet. And we also have an architectural drawing, which describes the addition. And I have a larger, Pauline was nice enough to make that presentation a little bit larger, 11 by 17. It's a little hard to read at 8.5 by 11. We also have letters from the neighbors. As you know, the village is required to send out a notice that this application is coming before the board. We have a letter from Christopher Shields and Megan Shields. We have a letter from Donald Eustace, and we also have a letter from Megan and Paul Cotter, all neighbors on the adjacent property. Let's put this packet back together here. Okay. Now, Bill, as we always do, I would like you to just further talk about why this application was denied for all the attendees. It's pretty clear on your denial of building permit application, but just as we do, maybe just make a public record of why it's been denied. Bill, you're on mute. You can unmute yourself.
Bill, you might need to hit *6 to unmute.
There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay.
We got
You
you.
keep yourself unmuted because we have questions for you.
Sure. The reason for denial and the referral, as stated in the notice to the ZBA, is alteration to existing garage and second floor addition per drawings of George J. Gaspar, architect, dated 11/25/2020, indicate non-compliance with the Village of Nelsonville zoning code. Variances are required as follows. North side yard required to be 8 feet 3 feet is provided. West side yard, which is the rear, is to be 12 feet and 3 feet is provided. And the existing coverage is at 35.8% and will not increase from the existing garage, driveway, and walkways. So the letter was denied because it did not comply with our local zoning.
Yes, thank you. And it's just, we should be clear, this is an existing non-conforming structure, just as you said, located on that property because of the setbacks. And I believe existing non-conforming because the lot coverage is greater than allowed, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So, Christopher, do you want to try to make your case of why the board should grant this area variance?
Yeah, sure. As far as the couple of issues go, the one requiring 12 feet as opposed to, and 3 feet provided, I own the other lot. So if, I mean, I feel like that one issue really isn't an issue if I own the other lot. The property that borders me, I guess on the north, where there's only 3 feet allowed. I mean, it's an existing structure. It was advertised when I bought the property to, a possible, addition to the structure. This isn't going to be something that's going up for a stranger to move into. I have some family that are ill and have some uncertain living conditions. And, along that side, there are privacy hedges that already exist that go up, not to the top of the roof, but go up pretty far. The one side is, again, it's not, I mean, there is some impedance on property as far as privacy goes. But I feel like, it's an existing structure. I'm just trying to, better myself, better my property, do right for my family. I don't see, it's not like I'm at this point not looking to build a house. I'd rather go this route than to use the lot that's allowed to put a house there. That would change things for me. But right now, this is plan A. To use the existing structure and go with a single 1-bedroom unit. There's plenty of parking. It's, I'm not looking to move a family in there. So I feel like the change is very subtle. It's not really a big deal. That's what I'm looking to do.
Okay, I believe the village law doesn't allow you to make an enlargement to a pre-existing non-conforming structure, number one, plus you have your setbacks issues. And one question I had, and mostly for Bill, is this lot, according to the architect's drawing, is identified as lot 14. And it incorporates where the house is now in the pool, which is in the village of Cold Spring. And then the lot in question here is in the village of Nelsonville, where you want to build the house. So is this one big lot or is this 2 separate lots?
Is that a question for me or for Bill?
Or for Bill, let's ask Bill first if he.
Actually, from a standpoint of ownership, it's owned in common. However, I believe you'll see that in the records, it's taxed individually. One as being in Cold Spring and one as being in Nelsonville, and with different tax ID numbers.
Okay. Is the lot coverage then based on both lots or the single lot where the garage is? I noted on the denial it was 34.
Yeah, everything is based upon that portion, or the lot that is in the village of Nelsonville.
Okay, perfect. Just wanted to clarify that. All right. Let me open it up to additional questions by members of the board, whoever wants to start based on your review of the applicant's documents. Is there any other?
Hey, this is Chris Keeley. So from my end, can you tell me a little bit about how the structure's used now? And to jump to the punchline, what I'm thinking about is, you know, the nearby neighbors, they understood that they were buying homes next to pre-existing non-conforming structure that was used for one certain purpose. If it is a garage, I'm curious about your take as the applicant, how you're looking to use it. To have that pre-existing non-conforming structure now be repurposed for a different use, a residential use that would be sort of hovering close to the property line. Just curious how it's being used now and what your thoughts are regarding that change of use, if there is one, for something so close to the line. And that's not a question for Bill, that's a question for the applicant.
Right now, the structure is just used for storage. It's a garage. It has a couple cars if needed. It has a car, motorcycles. It has, you know, personal property in the garage. Right now, it does have electric that's run to it. It's basically just used for storage at this point, like any other, you know, detached garage.
And any thoughts on that sort of change in proposed use here from detached garage to what would be a sort of residential quarters here for your family? It sounds like there's certainly some folks in your.
Yeah, the lot, I mean, the lot is zoned for, you know, residential. It's a residentially zoned lot. Clearly the, with the setbacks, the piece of property that's there would allow for a home to be put onto it. I don't want to go that route. I'd rather just use what's there, and just put a single, you know, I feel like this is the better option for the neighborhood and for myself, which is to use a smaller structure that already exists instead of using up a lot more, you know, much more of the property and putting a house there and making it a lot tighter around.
Got it. Thanks.
I mean,
And
I already have sign off. Well, I don't want to say I have sign off, but you know, it's zoned for village, you know, it's zoned for residential, and I know where it is. You don't need, I mean, you don't need septic. I have two options to go to tie into the existing, my home to get out to Parsonage. And I've had dealings with Cold Spring, and I've had, you know, I've talked to a couple people in Cold Spring about going out to Parsonage for water and for sewer. So, you know, basically that would be my plan, to keep the existing structure that's there and put a, you know, a one bedroom as opposed to a small house.
Thanks. And then just a quick follow up to that, and this Bill Bujarski, if just from your standpoint, Bill, in terms of zoning for that lot for a residential, for, you know, single family home or something along those lines, is that, as the applicant was just mentioning, is that your understanding, sort of other ways that the land could be used under current zoning law? I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page in terms of what is sort of already allowable on that lot, separate and apart from this application.
The key there is that the only way that I could see it could be used as a new house would be to you have to get a variance because the lot is pre-existing, but it's not non-conforming. The other thing is that you need a variance for coverage. You need a variance for a series of things. It would not just be a simple let's, you know, when we get a building permit application and put it on the lot. It'd be more involved. You'd be going through the same process again for residents.
Right. I think what Chris is saying is there a so-called as of right way to build a compliant residential unit on that lot, because it's going to weigh heavy on the board. If you could build a house there within the setbacks, to Bill's point, you might have lot coverage issues. But it seems difficult to take an existing non-conforming structure and make it non-conforming. It's a large hurdle to get over. But who else on the board has questions in reference to the?
Could I ask one, Bill?
Yes, Judy, please. Yes.
How high, when you put that second floor on, how high is that? And how close is it to the neighboring house?
The,
There's a section here, so.
yeah, the overall height to the peak of the new roof would be 25 feet.
So the floor of that addition would be about what? Is it pretty close to the neighboring house? It kind of seems to me, although I couldn't really see it too well on here, that they're quite close. That second story will be quite close to the next door. And does that mean that, or are windows there? Can that be seen by the neighboring house?
To measure, I haven't measured from, I mean, I know it's 3 feet off the property line, and then
Right.
from the property line to the home next door, I don't know what the exact footage is. But it's no closer than I am to one of my neighbors. You know, it's no closer than that. The design right now does have 3 windows on that side. One would be in a kitchen,
Right.
and then there would be 2 in the bedroom. So there would be 3 windows on the side that border the home on 3 Adams.
And what would be that view from like the bedrooms, look out there?
So right now I just have conceptual drawings. I don't have exact, you know, I have from ground to the peak of the roof. There are hedges that, like I said, right now, the hedges that are on that side already go up halfway up the roof to the existing structure that's there now. So the privacy hedges that are there are pretty tall. I don't know exactly how the windows would lie and you know, how much coverage there would be.
But okay, but if I would be looking out on, I'd have that 3 feet from that window to the next house. Is that about right?
There's 3 feet to there's 3 feet to the property line, and then the house on the other side is you know, set back. Plus the garage is set back behind. It's not like the garage and the home next door are butted up against one another or on the same you know, plane. And it's next to their garage. Granted, it's an attached garage, the home next door.
Okay.
It's not like it's looking directly at you know, bedroom windows or anything like that. You know, immediate, you know, the closest thing on the other side is a garage as well.
Right. So, and you said there's hedges that come, are between there.
Correct.
Of course, those hedges could come down at some point if they're too high, but
They're not my hedges.
oh, they're the next doors
Correct.
hedges?
Yes,
Okay.
they're not mine.
Okay. Thank you.
Bill,
If privacy,
Yeah.
if I don't know, if privacy is an issue, I have no problem with taking the 2 windows and moving them.
Okay.
There
Harold,
was a photo.
has a question. Yes.
Oh, pardon me.
Yes, Harold.
Yeah, there's a photo in the package. Can you explain to me what we're looking at? We're looking at the garage that you currently have that you're proposing to build up. Is the structure on the right, the red, looks possibly brick, I can't tell.
Yes.
Is that the neighboring house?
Yes.
We don't have it.
Those were supplemental photos that Bill provided us. Anybody could walk over to the site, but given some restrictions in the pandemic and people's, Bill provided us with photos from
Well,
the
I
street.
appreciate it. And is the area between the house and the hedges, is that sort of the neighbor's backyard?
It's okay.
Yes,
Got it. Thank you.
that's the adjacent neighbor's backyard.
Thank you.
Stephen, Steve, do you have any comments or questions?
No, I live alongside of both of them right there. And I see it, I know where Megan's coming from and I know where Jamie's coming from. Chris is coming from, rather.
Okay.
So, it's something that's, I know if I had the property, I would probably try and do the same thing, but that's up to the board, really, what they want to try and do.
Sure.
Because I'm a neighbor, I'm going to abstain from voting on this.
Oh, thank you, Stephen. That's a great idea. You can recuse yourself. So we'll have 4 members, quite enough. We have a quorum and we only need 3 to make a decision. Appreciate that. Okay. Well, so I think the board members have had an opportunity to comment. I'm trying to think of some other questions we can ask you. It's like I said, it's taking a non-conforming pre-existing building, adding to it is prohibited by the zoning resolution in Nelsonville. You have setback issues, which you can't do anything about. That's why the structure can stay as it is. Once you try to add to it, there's a number of issues. And like Bill said, you could try to do something as of right. And you've mentioned it yourself. So I don't think I have any more questions. If the board doesn't have any more questions, the board may ask more questions, but I'd like to open it up to the public in an organized way. That's what we do at this part of the meeting. And any comments or questions from the audience? And let's see, given that we're not in a physical setting, it's hard to point to people, but let's see, how do we want to start that? Does somebody want to volunteer to speak first? Megan? There we go. If you raise your hand, I can see you.
Yeah, right, you
Great
can see
idea.
me. How's everybody doing tonight?
Good.
So I am here with my husband, Paul,
Okay,
and you received our letter regarding our concerns of
right.
this.
And what I'll ask you to do, not to even, I'm sorry to be impolite, I should
No,
ask
no.
everybody, identify yourself as you have, where you live.
Oh,
Obviously, you
okay.
live in Nelsonville, and then they can,
Yes,
you
we
can
are
go on.
actually the neighbors directly next to Chris and Jamie. We are at 3 Adams Avenue. And Judy Meyer, you asked a question regarding those hedges and where they sit. They do sit directly 3 feet from the existing structure, and they are at a reasonable height at the moment. However, if this structure is to be granted, that structure will be looking directly into our backyard, into our patio, into our backyard. You received our letter of concern. I understand that he's trying to build this for an ailing family member, which I completely understand. However, at the end of the day, our biggest concern after this structure is built is our Airbnb here in Nelsonville, and the concern it brings to the community and to our street. As the board received our, as I said, is our concern in our letters, we do oppose this structure as it hinders, our lifestyle, their lifestyle, the community's lifestyle. So that's our biggest concern, is how the individuals that might be utilizing that structure with your, after your ailing individual, however that may develop. So if you guys have any questions for us, we'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else in the audience would like to comment on this application?
Yes, my name's Gloria Van Tassel. I live at 279 Main Street. Actually, I thought maybe you would have introduced who the board members are in case some people didn't know, but be that as it may. My question is the square footage of the addition. How much square footage are you adding?
I'm gonna put that over to Chris if he knows that, or we could look on our packet.
Yeah, yep, I'll tell you right now. Hang on.
You said 1 bedroom. Is it more than 1 bedroom? Are we talking kitchen, living room?
It's roughly 700 square feet. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, so
Okay, yeah, it's roughly 700 square feet.
On the
roughly.
plan, it says 728 square feet.
that's pretty big. Where I live on Main Street, Nelsonville, I think I'm only 800 square feet, so it is going to be quite large. Mr. Rice, the letters, I'm not asking you to read them, but are they for it or against it, the neighbors? Can you give us a general idea?
Oh, yes, we received 3 letters, which we introduced into the record, and the letters, let me just grab them again. And right here. And all 3 letters, one is kind of a letter of, I'll go through them one by one.
If you just could say who they're from and their location to that property?
Certainly, we'll go over that again. They have been, we introduced them at the beginning of the meeting for the record, but let me do that again, Gloria. We have a letter from Megan and Paul Cotter, who you just heard from, and the concerns they have about the property that they just expressed in their statement are the same concerns that were listed in the letter. We have a letter from Donald Hustis, and he's making recommendations to the board to follow the zoning as it was written, which is, I would say, is a letter in opposition. And we also have a letter from Christopher Shields and Megan Shields, and they are also in strong opposition to the addition. So we have 3 letters against, no letters for. And for your information, a member of the board, Stephen, has recused himself because he's an adjacent property owner. So we have 4 members of the board that are going to rule on this application.
All right, thank you for that.
Sure.
My concern is, and I feel bad that you have family members that are ill, but how many times have we heard that story that eventually you could sell that house in a month or 2, and then it will end up with Airbnb? That area has always been a big area where kids play. And the world we live in today is not the same as it was 25 or 30 years ago. And just concerns I have for if it becomes an Airbnb is the characters that will be coming in there. And I don't like to use that word characters, individuals. I don't know. You bought it. Yeah, it's a 2-family house. I just don't get it. But that's how I feel. I'm sorry. I wish you lots of luck in our community, but I wouldn't be happy if it was next to me.
Gloria, thank you for those comments. Maria, looks like you have a comment. Oh, you have to unmute yourself, or
Unmute yourself then.
can you do that, or can I do that?
You can do it by hitting *6 on your phone or hitting the mute button on your computer there.
Maria. Yeah, take your time. *6 on your phone.
Unmute. Okay, can you hear
Good,
me
beautiful.
now?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I just was curious as to how the Airbnb issue arose. This is not intended to be an Airbnb. where people are going to be transient every week. It's a residential apartment, and it's above, it has no larger footprint than what exists. So it's just airspace. And as far as Ms. Cotter's concern about viewing into the backyard, the neighbor to their, wait a minute, I'm trying to get my directional, to their west can view into their backyard. I mean, I don't know that backyard is such a private area, or needs to be a private area, because, you know, people just conduct exterior lifestyles outside. So the privacy there, for me, seems to be a moot issue. And as I said, there's no more extension into the variance. It's just airspace that's being requested here.
Maria, I forgot to ask, you are a resident of Nelsonville and live nearby, or?
I'm a resident of
Cold Spring.
Spring, and
Cold Spring, and then
yeah,
across the way, right there, and across the line.
right. Well, yeah, right across the way.
Yeah. Okay.
And I am Chris Gagola's mother-in-law.
Okay.
And so I was just aiding his application.
No, your observations are quite welcome. And Megan, you had a rebuttal to
Yes,
that?
I can answer to you, Maria. The privacy that we have in our backyard actually has always been there, and we have great privacy as of right now. And the structure that would be going up would be going above the hedges and looking directly into our backyard. Our house to the west that you're on about has been there, and that structure was there when we bought this home. The structure that looks to be going up would create a privacy issue, and it would look directly into our backyard. So I appreciate you coming to their defense, but you don't know the privacy that we currently have in our backyard. And if the structure is to go up, there will be a huge privacy issue, not even take away the whole window aspect. A giant structure, 720 feet, will be then, square feet will be then directly 3 feet above our hedges. So I appreciate your concern about our privacy, but this is what the biggest concern is. So thank you. And
Thank you,
I appreciate
Megan.
it.
Do we have any other members of the audience who'd like to make a statement for or against this application? I see Megan. I see Megan Shields. Oh, you gotta, you see my, there you go. Oh, you just muted yourself again. Yes. Yes, sir. Oh, I think you're on. We can't hear you.
Okay.
There you
So,
go. Take your time.
our position, you know, we haven't really don't have a huge stake in this, but as far as the character of the neighborhood and the structure that they're proposing, I think the character of the neighborhood needs to be taken into consideration for all of the neighbors, not just Megan and Steve and Donnie and myself. I reside at 1 Adams Avenue, which is on the corner. I think Marie was just talking about our house, which the back of our house does look over into Megan and Paul's yard. But like Megan said, when they purchased the house, our house was here, and same thing when we purchased, we knew kind of what we were getting into when we purchased. But as far as the structure that they're proposing, I don't even think it's needed. They already live in a 2-family house. One side is a rental, the other side is being used by them. The easiest thing to do for everybody was just not renew the lease of the existing, you know, tenants and put your family member in on the other side. And that solves the problem of having to get a variance. It solves Megan's problem of having a structure that's towering over her backyard. The character of the neighborhood remains the same, and everybody's kind of you know, left with what we started with. I understand, you know, family members' issues arise and you want to take care of them. That is the simplest fix, although it would probably take a hit to income coming in. But like some other people said, if you decided to sell this property and now you have, you know, 3 basically incomes coming in from the structure where you can sell the property as having, you know, a rental space in the back, that increases the value of your land significantly. And I understand from a homeowner standpoint why you would want to do that, but from a neighbor standpoint, I think it's the wrong move. I think it sends the wrong message for Nelsonville. I think it sets a precedent for other people who want to do the same thing. And you know, around here, at least in our neighborhood, we try to look out for one another when people go on vacation and who's coming in and out. We know who's belongs in the neighborhood, who resides here. It's just, it is a quiet spot. And I think, like Gloria said, the kids are down here riding bikes and playing and enjoying themselves. And I think that's what adds to the value of this neighborhood as it stands right now. We wrote the letter opposing the addition. Not that we have anything against Chris and Jamie. It's just, I think it sets the wrong tone for what Nelsonville is about. And the Airbnb is a big thing. And I think that is paramount. You need to take that in consideration about who the owner is going to be after Chris and Jamie leave, because once that apartment's in there, there's no telling who's going to be in there down the road, and everything just changes for everybody. So I appreciate your time, and you know, we strongly oppose it, and I can't say that enough. But just please consider it, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. There's a lot of Chris's on the line, so I'll say Christopher. Thank you. Let's see. Anyone else from the audience want to make a statement for or opposed, or any observations? It's that time of the meeting to do it.
William, it looks like Mary may have her hand up.
Mary, let's see. Where's Mary?
I don't know if that's intentional or not, but it appears Mary has her hand up.
Oh, Mary's not on my. Mary's just a Mary. Let's see.
Yes, that's me.
Oh, Mary. That Mary. Great.
This is Mary Rice. I live in Nelsonville, not near the home, but in Nelsonville. I have a couple of questions. I am a little confused about whether this is a separate lot. It's 2 lots owned by one owner. Is it a separate lot?
You're correct. It's a double lot. I own both lots. It was sold. The property was sold as one lot. It's actually half of it is in Cold Spring, half of it's in Nelsonville.
Okay. So if this application were granted, this is, I guess, to Bill or the zoning board. If it were granted today, it's non-conforming, you're extending the non-conformance. Is there a possibility that more could be added in the future?
Is this question directed to the chairman or to Bill?
To the chairman or Bill Bajarski?
Well, that's a theoretical question. I think number one, according to I'll just read it, the zoning resolution, so it's clear. According to section 188.14, improvements to nonconformities, A, an enlargement, any nonconforming building, other structure or site development shall not be enlarged, extended, reconstructed, or altered unless the enlargement, extension, reconstruction, or alteration is conforming. So you would appear to fall under that category. So, and I think your question is, if the board were to grant this, could then they further enlarge the property? And to Bill's point, they have issues with lot coverage, and so there's other questions on, can we do this as of right? They still have issues of lot coverage. Could they move? Could you demolish the garage like Chris was saying, he could demolish the garage, build a house in the middle of the lot, conform with all the zoning setbacks, and still maybe have a lot coverage issue. Could come back to the board for that. See if the board is,
Okay.
if they're sympathetic to that. We don't want to preclude how the board's going to rule this evening. But yeah, it's just difficult to add to a structure that is non-conforming. You just can't make it more non-conforming. Plus it has the setback issues. Does that
Okay.
answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. And Bill, you could elaborate on that, or any more member of the board could.
Well, from my standpoint, anything on that lot not done within the confines of the garage itself, even going up, would require variance.
Yes, and it
The lot
does.
is pre-existing non-conforming.
Yes, requires a variance. An area variance, I should be clear on that. Let's see, any other members of the public on this Zoom call? Would they like to make comments or observations, pro or con for this application?
Maria had.
Oh, Maria, there you are. Sorry. Yes.
I'm going back to this Airbnb that seems to be one of the hurdles for the board. And I think Airbnb, if I'm not mistaken, is governed by local laws. So just because there's a structure doesn't mean that it's allowable as an Airbnb, and anybody can apply for an Airbnb license, I believe, in town. I mean, if I wanted to put my condo on Airbnb, I'd have to go through whatever regulations are required and whatever conformity that I would have to apply to. So I'm not understanding, again, the Airbnb objection.
Can I make a quick comment on that? So
Please.
I just want to make clear, this is for myself, I assume for the other board members, but I don't want to speak for them. For myself, this isn't a consideration about Airbnb. There are no rules specific in Nelsonville. I think what you were just describing are the rules in Cold Spring. I don't think there's any comparable rules currently in place. I know something like that may be contemplated in Nelsonville, but I don't think there's anything along the lines of what you were just describing. But I also don't know if that's even our place to contemplate Airbnb here. I think that we're contemplating sort of what the proposal is in front of us, and thinking about the impacts to the community in terms of what the stated use is. That's from my perspective. I think all the commentary that you've been hearing about Airbnb is from audience members, and they're absolutely within their rights to raise those concerns if they have them. But from a board perspective, I'll say for myself, I will not be making my vote based on any implication around Airbnb in particular.
Thank you. That clarifies things. And the impact on the neighborhood, this is a one family, so a one bedroom. So it's not going to be conducive to children that would have any impact on the children and I've seen them playing in the streets. My grandchildren are part of that group. And it's a happy time to see them playing on Adam, because Adam is such a nice, quiet neighborhood. But because it's a one bedroom, I don't believe that it would impact the neighborhood quality.
I think that it does affect the community around it, though, and I wouldn't like to be that close to mine at 3 feet is just much too close.
They're already at 3 feet.
Excuse me?
They are already at 3 feet.
Right. So these people can look, this new additional floor is, I don't care if it's bedroom windows or kitchen windows or whatever windows, it is, they can look right down into to the neighbors, and I think it's pretty uncomfortable. That's my opinion of it.
I did mention that if from the conceptual plan, if privacy was an issue, that the windows could be moved. Let me just say that, you know, I do understand all my neighbors' concerns. You know, you heard Steve mention that, you know, it would have been something that he would have considered. My neighbors, the Cotters next to me, you know, when they bought their house, I mean, they used it as a rental as well. I mean, they don't anymore, but they do have an apartment in their basement. So, I mean, it could work both ways. I mean, that could always be used again. And, you know, it goes both ways. They don't use it as a rental right now. They have their children and they chose not to use it anymore. I completely understand that. I have children of my own. I have a 1-year-old and I have a 5-year-old. I'm not looking to put strangers into this. I understand the Airbnb concern that has been raised. I understand the privacy concern, which I understand. If it did become a problem, like I said, I have no problem with taking the windows away from the bedroom. A kitchen window isn't a full window. It'd be a small window just to let some natural light in. But some of the concerns about change in the neighborhood, I mean, I don't know if they're real concerns. Like I said, the Cotter household has an apartment in its basement. So, you know.
Okay.
I'm not looking to, house convicts. I legitimately have a father-in-law who is ill. And you know what? There will come a day where he wouldn't be in there. And there would be a random person in there. That is true. But my intention is legitimate. And again, I think a 1-bedroom, is not a big deal.
Why isn't it coming up?
Go ahead.
Yes.
Sorry, Bill, we
Sorry.
just would like to
Yes.
respond to your.
So, how you doing, Chris? Just to add to that, there, good. We did that when we had got this house originally, right? We're 10 years here, 11 this year, right? So we did that maybe a year and a half into owning this house. We didn't have any kids. It's an illegal basement. It's not a legal basement. We're helping out a family member.
Yeah.
Okay. So we never profited, if you like, from having a full finished basement. Just to add to that. But my biggest concern is you keep saying 3 feet and you want to go up. Okay, you're going to be looking down on top of us. 3 feet. It's a linear desk that's in front of you. To me, that's right. That's in my face. And for me, I'm majorly concerned about that. And it's easy, you say, I understand you, it's a family member right now. 2 years from now, 3 years from now, who's it going to be looking down on top of my kids?
Yep. Like I said.
That's all I got to say.
Yep. Like I said, I do understand that. And if like I said, if privacy is an issue, the windows will be gone.
All right. Thank you, Chris. I want to give everybody an opportunity to comment on this application.
Sorry, Bill, just go ahead.
Yeah, but as I think it was Myers, is it?
Judy. Yeah.
Judy said earlier, one window, kitchen window, living room window. A window's a window. Someone goes to the window is looking down. I mean, you keep saying like bedroom windows. A window's a window, right? And you can go up to that and look in. You're literally looking in our backyard. 3 feet. To add our kids.
All right. Thank you. We're looking for anybody new that hasn't spoken, or we're going to move to the next portion of this meeting. I want to give everybody opportunity to talk. We do have another applicant waiting. We're not in a rush, but I want to let everybody know how the board decides these. But please, anybody raising their hand that I don't see? Okay.
Hi. Oh, I'm sorry. Ellen
Yes.
Haney. I'd like to say something if possible. I'm here with my husband, Jim.
Ellen did. Ellen? Ellen, where are you from?
38 Parsonage. We're adjacent. We're part of the duplex that
Got
Jamie
it.
and Chris own.
Okay, thank you.
So we've rented here for 2 years, and Chris and Jamie have always been very careful about whom they rent to and making sure the occupancy is well within the guidelines and the limits. So it's just the two of us, my husband Jim and I. And I think Chris and Jamie were particularly careful about making sure that it was under occupied. They didn't want to add any additional crowds to the street. So I just wanted to make that known that they've been very careful about ensuring that their renters or their whomever it is that's on their property is well within the.
Meets a certain level of responsibility and is not just anybody. We were vetted, you know, it wasn't just having the money to them. It was more about having the right fit for this apartment because they have children, young children, that they too are concerned about as parents. So, you know, we don't want you to, we want to just vouch for the character of them and hopefully not have you go for the suggestion that you terminate our lease. So.
Oh, okay. That's funny. Yes. Okay.
From the other Chris.
Yes. Appreciate you making those comments. Anyone else before we want to end the public comment section? Oops. Just turn my phone off. Okay. Well, thank you all for participating in the discussion. A lot of good points were made. What the board does now, and according to village law, the board has to make a determination based on 5 criteria. So we're going to have to move into that portion of the meeting. But I think it's important for the public, the board already knows, but the public to know how the board makes these decisions on area variances. So I'm going to quickly read through the 5 points like we usually do in the meeting, and then we'll come back and we'll ask the board opinions on each one. And each element, which I'm going to read, is going to be discussed by the board in a minute, but here's a preview for the audience. It's number 1, whether the granting of the variance will cause an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties. That's the number 1 consideration. Number 2, whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some other feasible method other than a variance. Number 3, whether the requested variance is substantial. Number 4, whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions of the neighborhood. And finally, number 5, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, which consideration shall be relevant to the board's decision, but shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the area variance. And I think our board members are familiar with that. Now you know how the board makes this decision. So any board members have an objection of my reading this and getting comments from you? Okay, so whether the granting of the variance will cause an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties. Just speaking for myself, we've heard from the neighborhood, from the neighbors, and they believe it would be a detriment to their property. Any other board members' observations or comments based on item 1? Okay.
Bill or William there.
Yes.
It's Chris. I do, with what you just mentioned, I do agree with that. I think that we've heard pretty firmly from a number of the neighbors, most immediate neighbors that do have those concerns. I think that's going to be the piece that'll be driving my decision. The idea of changing that type of use, that proximate to a neighbor after after that neighboring property had already been purchased, understanding that current use, changing that use, I do think has a significant detrimental impact on the neighbor. So when we get to the voting portion of this, I think that's going to really be what's driving my decision.
Right, and you're using the word change of use to describe people moving upstairs in a residential unit as opposed to being a garage. And completely understand that it's just for the record.
Correct, yes, and just to underscore that for a quick second, since there was a lot of discussion around Airbnb, it has nothing to do with Airbnb. It does have everything to do with what you just described, though, the change of use from a non-residential to a residential purpose.
Yeah, and just to be clear, it's a use allowed under the code in the residential district. So got it. Anyone else have a comment on number one? All right, let's go to number two. Whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some other feasible method other than a variance. Now, we have talked about that. There may be a more feasible approach, but it may require a variance. As we talked about, the garage could be torn down. You could build a allowable residential house on that property. There's a lot of problems as Bill described. So it could be achieved, but not without a variance. Just to clarify that. Any other comments from the board?
Seems to me that you might be able to do something within the context of coming back to the board for variance, but a more traditional type of plan for the property, something that didn't violate the setbacks the way this does. I understand the existing use, but I'm troubled by the notion of allowing a non-conforming use to become that much more non-conforming and prevalent.
Yes, thank you, Harold. I think it's a great observation. If one were to move the house to, say, the center of the lot, totally conforming with setbacks, there's other challenges. It would be much easier application for the board to review. All right, if no other comments, number three, whether the requested variance is substantial. By the very nature of it, it's a substantial request for a variance, given that it's a pre-existing non-conforming structure, and the requirement for the setback is much larger than what's there. So it is what it is. It's a substantial variance. Any other comments from the board? Any observations on that point number three? Okay, go ahead. We're going to move on to number four. Whether the proposed variance will have an adverse impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood. Per our discussion, I think there's a lot of thought that it will from the neighbors. And again, we've had some observations from those in favor of it that think it will have very little impact. But I guess the question is, what does the board think? And I'd have to say that there's a potential for an impact on the neighborhood. Any other comments from the board? Okay. Number five is whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, which consideration shall be relevant to the board's decision, but shall not necessarily preclude the granting of an area variance. This is always tricky. When the property was purchased, the garage was there, it was non-conforming. The Board of Appeals is here to look at the zoning, because not every lot in Nelsonville is the same. Some are large, some are small, some are much tighter than the property we're looking at today. So every appeals is different. So it's hard to tell if it's a self-created hardship. It kind of was, because you bought the property, you knew the limitations, but everyone is open to come to the Zoning Board of Appeals. So that's why this fifth one is a little ambiguous. So it kind of was a self-created difficulty, but that's the reason you're here, to talk to the board. Any other comments from the from members of the zoning board or observations on that? This is the last chance for any comments from the floor based on what you've just heard. Okay, well then I think the board is in a position where it can take a vote on this application. I just need someone, I'll make a motion to take a vote, but I need someone to second that.
Second.
Thank you. So I guess I'll go first. We're going to take a vote. We're going to go, we have 4 members of the board. They're eligible to vote tonight. Stephen recused himself. So the vote on this application from myself would be, I would vote no to grant this variance based on the discussion in tonight's meeting and the review of the 5 elements required to grant a variance. Who's next? Chris, I'll call on you. I'll just call on people. Your
Sure.
vote is?
I also vote no.
Thank you, Chris. Harold?
I vote no.
Thank you, Harold. Judy?
Vote no.
All right, the board has voted 4-0 to deny the application. And I think that would bring the meeting to conclusion. Chris, I wish you luck with the project. If you will intend to take a different approach, please come back to the board. But for now, the application was denied. I want to thank everybody for participating, for putting together the packets, for the discussion in tonight's meeting. And that will conclude this applicant.
Hey, real quick, I have one question for you.
Certainly.
Yeah, I got a letter, the original denial letter to come to the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Right.
Do I get, even though there was a vote here, this is being recorded, do I get an official letter or no?
Yeah, Pauline will, I believe Pauline follows up with the administrative side of this. And I could, Pauline, you could, I don't want to speak for you.
You'll get the decision, which
Thank
is you will sign, William, and here we'll get a copy.
Exactly right. We will summarize the decision and the chairman will sign it and send it to you for your records.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you all for participating. Does anyone need to take a 5-minute break and we will go to the next application?
Okay.
Everybody good?
Yeah, let's keep going.
Okay. Now, application number 2. Again, let's see. Is there any new members or any new members of the audience that didn't hear the introduction tonight? Introducing the board members, or would you like me to do that again? Is there somebody new on the line? Okay. Well, this is the application number 2. This is the Village of Nelsonville Zoning Board of Appeals. The next application is for the 13 Gatehouse Road accessory building. And just let me, since the meeting's already opened, we're going to keep it open. So the applicant is Mr. Dugan, if I said that correctly. Is Mr. Dugan on? Oh.
No,
Right, let's see. That's a good point.
guy under me. Where did Karen Park go?
Karen, just to clarify, Karen was on here earlier.
I see Karen. She's waving, yes. Is Mr. Dugan on? Ah, there you are. That's why we don't see your name on the screen.
Okay, there you go.
All right, so that was the point of that, was to introduce the applicants. and it looks like Karen is in support of the applicant. We have all 5 board members present. As before, there's 3 affirmative votes needed to either deny or approve the application. Again, we're going to declare the request a type 2 action under seeker, the Environmental Protection Act, and no further action is required on anyone's part. Now, we do have a lot of correspondence, and Karen put it together in her cover letter, which I'm going to read off. And we have a lot of plans, but we have a copy of the property deed. We have the ZBA appeal form, the permit application, the denial from the building inspector. We have a copy of the property survey dated October 24th, 2018. We have a copy of the site plan dated April 26, 2021. We have a copy of architectural drawings A1 and A2, this is proposed floor plan and exterior elevations for the accessory structure, and that's dated March 24th, 2021. Other correspondence, we do not have any letters in opposition or in support of this that I know of, that we have not received. So for the record, that's the correspondence and the applications documents. Okay. Bill, we're going to ask you again to explain why you rejected this building department permit.
As stated in the referral, the reason for the denial and referral was a proposed 1,870 square foot barn is in excess of the 500 square foot maximum for an accessory building under the Village of Nelsonville zoning code, chapter 188, section 188-22. Okay, it's permitted use by district subsection A-5.6. The subject property is located in the hillside residential zone. That's an HR zone. Pursuant to the submitted application, the coverage is compliant at 2.7%, as well as meeting the required setbacks, inclusive of the proposed attached 3,292 square foot new residence also proposed on the site. The residence is not in for a variance, it is compliant. So the only compliance issue here is that the requested barn is in excess of the 500 square feet and would require variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, the fairly clearly stated. Now, Mr. Dugan, do you want to make a statement on why you're seeking a variance, and number one, why you need a variance to build this accessory building beyond the 500 square feet?
Do you want to go ahead, Karen, on this first?
Sure. Hi, I'm Karen Parks, and I'm going to just start the presentation, and then John Dugan, the owner, will elaborate or also help to answer any questions.
Perfect.
I wanted to ask just first, is this a public hearing tonight, or is this just an initial review of the application?
This is a public hearing. The thought was that this would be completed this evening.
Okay, great. Good, thank you. Okay, so thank you very much, everyone, for being here. The application before you is to construct an equipment barn on John's property that is considered an accessory structure. And as Bill mentioned, the proposed square footage of the equipment barn is 1,870 square feet, which exceeds the allowable square footage of 500 square feet. So just a little background on the property. This is right now a vacant lot. The lot size is 4.419 acres. It's in the hillside residential zone. The minimum lot in the HR district is 60,000 square feet. So this is significantly larger than the required lot size. And John's proposing to build a new single family residence on the house and this detached accessory structure, the equipment barn. So the square footage, as we mentioned, is over the allowable 500 square feet. And the necessity for that is just for personal storage for vehicles and property maintenance equipment, just to be able to accommodate his storage needs on the property. And what we tried to do to mitigate the impact of the size of the structure is to locate it significantly within the boundaries of the property and significantly within the required setbacks to minimize proximity and impact on the neighbors. So we're well within all of the setbacks of the property. For example, the rear property line setback, which is 60 feet required, our actually closest distance to the property line of the proposed structure is about 103 square feet at its closest distance, and all other distances to other property lines exceed that. In addition, it's fairly wooded to the southeasterly side of the property, and the north and west. I'm sorry, not the north. The north is where the residence is going and the septic system for the residence. But the house itself and the barn collectively only make up a total lot coverage of 3.1%. And I know in the original denial letter that Bill issued, it states that the lot coverage is 2.7%. And since that was submitted initially, the footprint of the house has changed slightly because of the layout, and that's stated on the site plan that was submitted dated April 26th. So the footprint of the house is 4,015 square feet versus the initial 3,292. So that bumped the lot coverage up to 3.1%. However, we just wanted to also note that that's significantly lower than the allowable coverage of 15% in the HR district. So that's the basic application if you have any questions.
John, you have anything to add, or do you want to just begin asking questions?
No, I think you can just ask questions. That William, that's basically what Karen covered. Is what I'm proposing to do with the accessory building. Is just to store in and for vehicles and to store equipment in.
Yeah. Okay. Understanding this is a residential district, is the intent to store commercial?
Well, it probably will be a commercial vehicle like I did. I've no different than I did in my previous residence since 2003 on Main Street.
Because the Nelsonville zoning, Village of Nelsonville zoning in this particular issue, and I know a lot of people are familiar with it, limits accessory buildings to 500 square feet, probably for some good reasons. Now, want to limit, commercial vehicles and commercial storage and in garages. But here's the other thing: the zoning resolution doesn't recognize the vast differences in areas of in acres in different zoning zones. In the village, there's small lots. In the hillside residential, there's large lots. But nonetheless, the zoning code doesn't recognize that. It limits your accessory buildings to 500 square feet. So your application is 3.5 or 3 times, more than 3 times the allowable area of the of the zoning code, so that it's probably hard for it's hard for the board. I won't speak for the board to get our head around such a substantial asking for such a substantial variance. But at the same time, you got a big lot. You want to store your equipment in to take care of your property. But it's
Look,
a big,
yeah. The house is going to be pretty much a greenhouse. I'm not going to be using any oil or propane. I'm going to be doing everything solar, and it's going to be very close to a passive house. I'm going to be doing a lot of wood. So it'd be hoping to use as much roof line for solar panels also, so.
Yeah, the issue is your application puts the board in a awkward position where the board doesn't want to set precedents, as you know. It would invalidate the zoning a resolution to some degree by such a large, asking for such a large variance. Should the board, and I don't know what the board's going to do, but given it's a 500 square foot and 3.5 times that area puts the board in a position to set a precedent where it would make the zoning law essentially invalid. So that's just my initial observation. What does anybody else think about the application? Members of the board, and then we'll get to the public. But
can I hear more in response to William's question about the proposed use? What are you putting in this structure? What kind of equipment?
Well, I was going to have like storage for personal vehicles and equipment for around the property, and maybe a work vehicle.
No heavy equipment. I'm not hearing that.
Well, I might have a small bobcat or something for my work. Nothing more than I had, as I said, when I was over on 344. I owned a house there from 2003 until last year, and I never had a violation with the village of Nelsonville, and I did the same thing, and I wasn't planning on doing anything different in this property.
okay. I don't know, Bill, if you have any thoughts on, is it okay? And excuse my ignorance, is it okay to store commercial equipment on a residential site, or is there is that a gray area, or?
In my experience, appears to be a gray area in our code.
Okay.
In fact, as we speak, I have the code open and seeing if there's any prohibitions. In my experience, it's not unusual to see commercial equipment stored or parked on private property, in residential areas in the village. So it's kind of a interpretation, of what the end result is.
Right.
Okay. The problems I've incurred is a lot of equipment is stored outside in plain sight. This would be stored within an enclosed structure.
Okay. Any other comments from Harold? I hope that answers your question. Any other, Chris, you have a comment?
I have a comment.
Oh, Steve, yes.
From what I'm looking at the plans and everything else, I see that he wants to put the structure up. It's within the setbacks and everything. The only problem I see is that he wants more than 500 square feet. And speaking from experience, I know exactly where he's coming from. So it's not going to impact any of the area that I can consider. He's going to use it as basically as a garage. And then he has a house he's putting on this property that he's telling us is going to be totally green, which is something that everybody really wants. So now I think this is something that we got to really consider. And that's all I got to say on this.
Thank you. Chris?
You're muted, Judy. Come on, you're muted.
Oh, Judy, there you are.
Yeah, I'm not.
Judy.
I'm thinking.
Oh, okay, yeah. I didn't see. Yeah, I'd like to see it go. This gentleman, my only question is, does most of this equipment then, you can't have things outside piled around, cans or things that shouldn't be. Everything will be kept inside of the building. You know,
Yes.
I wouldn't want to see, I don't know, you know, much of it stored outside. On the other hand, you seem to be not very close to other neighbors that would care less. So that's just my thought, that as long as it's kept neat and most of the things kept inside, I have no problem with it.
Okay. Let's see. We've heard from everybody. Chris, any thoughts?
No, I think I'm aligned with what some others have mentioned. This one's not particularly concerning to me. It is larger than the code specifies, but for these types of uses in a passive building like this, I'm not particularly concerned.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the floor?
Yeah, this is Pam Hustis with Dave Hustis. We have the property right adjoining this lot in question. And I have a couple of questions. One thing, I'm sorry, the woman who's with
Karen?
Hi, I'm Karen.
Yeah, she mentioned that the variance was 60 feet from the nearest property line, but the building is 103 square feet. I didn't know if there was a difference between feet and square feet in this case.
103 feet.
Let's see a setback.
So
Yeah.
actually, what it is the required setback through the property line is 25 feet. It's actually 60 feet along the front yard, which in this case would be the right of way of what it was called Wood Avenue, even though it isn't the Wood Ave that everybody understands as the travel way. So what I was saying, it's not the square footage, and I apologize if I misspoke. It's the setback, the actual distance from the building to the property line could be as close as 25, but at its closest point, it's 103 feet.
Okay,
And
when you said square feet, I wasn't sure. But I guess that what our comments are, I know a couple of the board members said that, oh, well, I don't see a problem if it's over 500 square feet, but being a neighbor to that, I don't know really, I don't know if I can envision 3 times what the law states. I don't know what a 1,800 square foot building looks like. But I will say that I think that my request is that we follow the zoning as it's written for an accessory building on because I know that I was held to that when I wanted to put just a garage on my empty lot. I did not have a primary building. I didn't have a house. I know a house is going to be, or is proposed to be put on this property. We don't know when. I know it's going to be a greenhouse, although it's being said that it's a greenhouse. Plans can change. I mean, Lord knows my house changed from concept to what was actual. So that's, as a neighboring property, I want everybody in my neighborhood to be happy. I don't want any troubles. I want everyone to be able to have everything that they want, believe me. But I know that I was held to the letter of the law a few years back. So I'm wondering why now this isn't an issue for the board. You think, no problem. Why now there's a change in behavior, and also, I guess that's it, because the variance and everything is still in line.
Thank you for those comments. Any other?
Yeah, Mark Kushner here. Hello, everyone. I'm actually a neighboring property owner also. And I just have a couple of questions. One question first for Mr. Bujarski. The question is, I mean, I heard all this stuff. I'm a lawyer, but I'm not, I don't know some of this jargon. So where is this barn going to be located relative to the property line? I'm at 15 Wood Avenue. So where is the barn literally going to be from, I guess, my property line? I want to get a good, I don't have a good sense of that right now.
I think that possibly the best way to describe it, I would defer to Karen Parks, who put the plans together. But what there is to the rear of your property is the right of way for Wood. Was it Wood Avenue, I believe?
Yeah.
So it would be above that on the upper portion, and I'll leave the rest to Karen as to regard to where that is.
Okay. And I'm sorry. Who's Karen? Karen, who are you?
So, hi, I'm Karen Parks. I'm a residential designer, and I'm assisting John Dugan with the design of his house and helping him through these application processes.
Okay.
And if it's helpful, I could screen share the site plan so that neighbors can see where the building is proposed.
Well, how far? Let me just cut to the chase. How far from my property line will this building be?
Well, I'm not exactly sure where your property
I'm at
is.
15 Wood Avenue. My house is pretty close to the property line.
Okay.
I think we can allow Karen to share the screen unless
that would probably help. I think we're about 158 feet from your property line, but if you'd like me to show the plan on the screen, I can.
I don't know if Michael's still on. I don't think.
Yeah, please. No, that'll be good. That'll be good.
Yeah.
Okay. Just if you'll just bear with me a minute. Oh, I think the host has to allow me to screen share.
Okay, let's see how that works.
Okay.
One participant can share at a time. Multiple.
No, it's even further. Yeah, because here's the stone wall.
Okay.
Bill's holding up something. I see. I don't know. I can't really see it.
It's even further.
Okay.
Here
we go.
I have a copy of the survey, but I have no way to present it.
Oh, there we go. Karen has a.
Okay.
There we go. Perfect.
Okay. So.
Well, Mark, if you can find your property, then
I'm trying. Yeah. So 15 Wood. It's at the corner of Gatehouse, where Gatehouse kind of veers off. At the end there.
So I think you might be in this area. I'm going to try and zoom in a little. So this right of way is not the traveled Wood Ave that everybody is familiar with. The traveled Wood Ave, I believe, comes roughly in this direction.
Okay.
And then Gatehouse Road continues up there. So I'm not sure which house is yours, Mark, but
it's at the end. It's right. It's at the end where Gatehouse, at the corner there where Gatehouse.
So right here where I'm.
Yep. I think so. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think that.
Okay. So this is the driveway entrance to the property. There's an open field at the top of the property where the house is proposed to be situated.
Okay. Yep.
The septic system is also in part of the open field. And then this is all wooded area.
Okay.
And the proposal is for a drive to kind of hug the edge of the level field to the equipment barn, which is fairly well centered within the property. So this dashed line represents the required setbacks for the property. So as you can see, we're pretty significantly inside. And so for example, to the boundary at Wood Avenue, we're about 158 feet plus the actual Wood Ave. And if your building is over here. And then this was the closest property distance. This was the 103 feet to the property line.
That's Dave Maroney's.
Okay.
Okay. And then so then maybe even if you leave that up, actually, that's actually really helpful. But then, all right. So then probably the bigger question for me, at least, and my neighbors too, is there's like a makeshift road right now. I guess what we're calling Wood Avenue. It's kind of like a wood, like a makeshift road that there's been some kind of trucks going through there. I don't know. Is that where this kind of equipment is going to be coming in and out of the property? Is that going to come through Gatehouse and kind of literally on my property line and then go up into is that where it's how this stuff's gonna go in and out?
Yes, this is the access to the house.
So you're talking about big construction equipment. So I heard the construction equipment going right, whizzing by my house, right? Kind of, that's what's gonna happen?
Well, I mean, there obviously during the course of construction, there will be construction equipment accessing the property via that site. That's not an endless
That's not, no,
process.
I'm talking about after the construction's done, stuff, just the storage, what's being stored. I understand, I just heard trucks, bobcats, and cars, and I heard personal vehicles, but it sounds like it's a business. It's like a construction business. That's what I don't know if that's right or not. I mean, I heard personal, but I think they just said it just to, just to have a late concern. It sounds like it's business equipment, like construction equipment. Is that right, or am I missing something here?
There will be a construction vehicle parked there. So
You might want to
I'm sorry?
no, there will be a construction vehicle parked there.
Okay.
You can explain.
Yeah, because I have a construction business which I run for the last 15 years.
Okay, congratulations. All right, that's great. Are you keeping, it sounds like you're keeping your construction business equipment?
No, I have a yard that I keep my stuff in.
Okay.
And I will be bringing home stuff sometimes, but I have a yard that I keep my equipment in.
Okay. But is there anything preventing you from bringing your equipment onto this huge shed? I mean, really big shed that you're building 3.5 times. Is there anything preventing you from doing that once this thing goes up? I don't know who the question that's for, but I don't know, maybe for the board or for Mr. Bujarski. I'm not sure.
But I mean, this is William speaking. The board can grant variances with conditions to answer your question. If that's the board can restrict certain things. I'm not saying the board's going to do that. I'm not sure how the board's going to vote on this, but the board can impose restrictions. If the variance was granted, the board could limit certain things. Probably have to talk about it for a little while, but okay. Great
And
questions.
Can I ask a question along those lines? And this might be for Bill Bujarski. Bill, in a scenario where the garage here would be limited, or the barn here would be limited to 500 feet in accordance with the code, is there anything stopping this applicant or any applicant really in these scenarios from having that the construction equipment, a bobcat, things along those lines? Is there anything stopping them from driving that onto their grass as is and just leaving it on their lawn, or parking it in their residential driveway occasionally? Or are there prohibitions against that? I'm trying to think about the scenario of, can this property owner bring that bobcat onto the property regardless of how big the shed is?
Well, that's actually a very good question, because as we are on the meeting here, I'm going through the code, and there seems to be more prohibitions for that type of equipment in an open space versus an enclosed space. Okay, I'm trying to find the specifics, but it doesn't exclude so far in our code the parking of it does exclude the parking of a commercial vehicle in the open, and if it exceeds 10,000 pounds, so 5 tons, then anything greater than 5 tons can't be parked on the property, and you're only allowed. And again, it says in a parking space. It doesn't refer to a parking building. Is one of the things in the code. I'm not 100% sure that it was ever been addressed.
Well, thank you, Bill. It's very helpful.
Thanks.
Hey, William, this is Peggy and Chris Duffy. We live actually right next door to Mark and also adjacent to the property.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, guys. How are you?
Karen, could I ask you to take down that, or should we leave it up? Is that helpful for people to see?
I can take it down and put it back up. If need be.
Just easier to see everybody. How you doing, Peggy? Chris,
Yeah,
how are
hi.
you?
Hi.
Hey, Peggy.
So, well, I appreciate the points that Karen made. I mean, I understand why she's wanting to make them about the setbacks and the percentage of the area coverage. those aren't relevant, right? What's relevant is what's you're asking a variance for, which is the size of the shed, which is, you know, over 3 times what the zoning allows. And I mean, and you know, this is not just a not in my backyard issue. I was a member of the Zoning Board of Appeals for well over 10 years. I voted on a number of these issues, and, you know, I feel the same way about this issue as I felt when I was sitting as a member of the Zoning Board of Appeals, which is, you know, the zoning regulations exist because that's what the village has. Those are the zoning regulations that exist in the village right now. And that they're same for, you know, a village residential, for a mountain residential, for a hillside. Actually, I don't know if they're the same for a mountain residential, but they're definitely the same for a hillside residential. It doesn't matter how big the property is. It doesn't matter what kind of lot it is. That's the limit. And I think Mark Kushner raised an important point. I appreciate that Mr. Dugan has a field and a business where he keeps most of his property stored, but an 1,800 square foot garage. I mean, I can't even imagine how many vehicles that would store, and the implications of all those vehicles being in, first of all, there's the size of the building itself and the extent to which it exceeds the zoning regulations for the building. But, you know, as you know, Mr. Kushner says, like that, you know, that it's right now that driveway is actually really pretty precarious. You know, the idea it's right behind people's houses. There's problems with runoff as it is now. You know, the idea that you then could possibly have many vehicles, you know, driving back and forth on that road is a problem, and that becomes relevant because having a shed of that size that exists the zoning regulations by such an extensive amount, you know, presents the possibility that you would then have that many vehicles, you know, going back and forth. So we actually didn't submit anything in writing. We wanted to, we reviewed the application today, and we definitely wanted to hear Mr. Dugan indicate what he planned to do with that space. But I think it's pretty safe to say that had we submitted something, we would have certainly raised concerns about you know, I mean, to me, that's enormous, you know, for an accessory building.
Yeah, as for the driveway, that's the way I bought the property. The driveway was put in.
Okay.
That's
I
the way
didn't
the
realize
driveway,
that.
yeah, that's the way the driveway was put in when I bought the property.
Okay, that's helpful to know. Thank you.
Yeah, so I hope to do something obviously with it. That's not the way I want to get in there, because it is steep to get in.
Yeah.
But with the accessory building, you know, it was designed to stay back from the house. I could have attached the building to the house with a breezeway, and which would have been approved without any problems. I decided to keep it back in the woods so it wouldn't be out in the public to be like a sore thumb to people.
Mm-hmm.
That's the reason I took it away. I can add a breezeway back and put it back as it was.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then still get approved. I was doing it this way to kind of tuck it away in the woods so it wasn't in the public view. There's a reason I was putting it in.
Right. And I can understand that. It's actually, and this isn't, it's
So
it
that's
makes
why,
it
you know,
closer to my house.
it's very, I'm actually closer to the house than I am to the property line. So it wouldn't be very hard to put a breezeway to it.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, would it have been, 2 questions. So would it have been approved as a barn, 1,870-foot barn with attached with a breezeway? That would have been approved? If it was just attached to the house?
Would have been part of the structure.
Okay, I don't, Mr. Bajard, I guess I'd have to defer to the.
Clear to me.
Okay,
The second thing is, so it sounds like, so when you bought the property, you didn't buy this right, correct? You didn't pay for this right to build this monstrosity, this huge barn, right? I mean, you didn't pay for that right. You're now asking for it, something that you didn't buy when you bought the property, right? Because it was only 500 square feet. Is that right? Okay. Okay.
Yes, that's why we're here tonight for the
Understood.
zoning board of appeals. It's not an as of right development. John makes a good point about the breezeway. But what we're addressing is the large order of magnitude of the barn as opposed to what's written in the zoning code, And like I said, it puts the board at a bad position to set a precedent to look at this particular property and say, well, it merits approval, but that's why you're here. So we look at all the pros and cons. It's a huge site. It's not a small site in Nelsonville, so we have to look at that, but we also have to look at the issue of setting a precedent. To Peggy's point, this 500 square foot limitation is throughout the residential zoning code. There's no question about that. So let's think. What else? Anybody else from the audience have any questions or observations?
And as I always do, I always agree with Peggy. So I agree with everything she said. And Peggy knows that, right? We agree with you all the time, including now.
William, I have just
yes, Chris.
one comment.
Yes,
which is that I believe that Mr. Dugan is doing this, is trying to make it unobtrusive, and I really appreciate that. My concern and why I oppose the variance is that it sort of sets up a future, a potential future problem. If there's a garage that big that's available if the property is sold, I mean, that's bigger than my house, and it's not I don't live in a small house. I feel like it's speculation, but I feel like it encourages a certain type of use. It seems like it's more for having a business on the property. That's just, so I feel like it creates a future issue, and that's all I have to say.
Right, and I think if one were to look at the Zoning Board of Appeals record over the past 20 years, they would see that certainly we have granted garage sizes larger than 500 square feet. The record speaks for itself, but they've been proportional to that 500 square feet and the property. And you might want to argue that you have a big property but so I'm just saying it's a substantial ask to put a building that large on your site, but there's other ways to get around it. But what else? Who else can? Any other before we wrap up this discussion? Is there any other final comments from?
Sure. Yeah,
anybody?
I have a couple of comments. Please.
Who is that? Oh yes, Karen. Sorry again. Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
So yes, I agree. The size we're asking for is significant, and as it's already been mentioned, the size of the barn should be exact. It's 3.74 times larger than what's allowed.
Right.
And I'd also just like to point out that the property is 3.2 times larger than the minimum lot size in the HR district. So proportionally, we're pretty close in terms of the percentage-wise of what might be allowed. And I would also just add that I appreciate your comments, Peggy, about the fact that yes, the variance we're asking for specifically is about the size of the structure. However, I do feel that the other zoning aspects are relevant in any application before the zoning board, because each element can be a part in mitigating the impact of the variance that's being requested. So in the case of this, where we're asking for a large structure, part of the impact of that variance that we're requesting is being mitigated by the fact that we are placing the structure significantly within the lot. We're not choosing to put it 25 feet from a property line, even though that's allowed. That the lot coverage is significantly less than what's allowed. So I do think that those factors should be taken into consideration as mitigating factors, even though you're correct that the actual variance is strictly the size of the structure.
So in response, I mean, one big response I have to that is, it's a big, 4 acres is a lot of acreage. It's a lot bigger than my place. But the fact is to get the equipment, what I'm hearing is heavy equipment. To get this equipment to the barn, it's got to go literally skirt my line and the Duffy's, pretty close to the Duffy's line. So it's great that you've got the barn in the middle of the property, but how do you get you gotta go literally by your neighbors, right by the property lines, and that's the biggest concern. There's no other road. It sounds like there's no other access. That's it.
Yeah, like my equipment is no bigger than what Bill mentioned. You know, I have a skid steer, you know, and it's no bigger than it's not a big machine, and I got a 3.5 ton excavator. That's the two biggest machines.
What do you need 1,800 square feet barn then, if it's not that big? I mean, I don't understand that. I don't get it.
Well, I need it for storage for accessory equipment. Sorry?
No, I'm just saying. I mean, you're saying.
Listen, I'm sorry that your property line is so close to the driveway. That's you know.
Well, when I bought the property, you didn't have a right to do this. When I bought the property with this 500 square foot, I thought that was going to be upheld. And now apparently it's subject to being overturned. I mean, I bought into this property. You know, when you say I bought the property, yeah, I bought the property when there was only the right to do a 500 square foot barn.
It's just allowed.
Well, all right. I'm just saying. I just think there's something here. I mean, again, that's a monstrosity. That's a huge barn. That's 3.5 times the size of what's allowed. That's huge. I'm sorry. I just, it's literally right by the property. I mean, it's great. Again, you've got to get the equipment in. So how are you going to do that? It's going to skirt the line. So you get big trucks coming through. I mean, that's what I'm a little concerned about.
Okay.
And the Duffys, I guess, are concerned too, but I don't want to speak for them.
Mark, thank you.
Okay.
For that observation.
Sorry, if I could, I just have one more comment.
Yes, Karen.
First of all, you're absolutely right. The property was bought, with the intention that you're going to meet the zoning code, but the reason why the variance process is put forth is so that people can request a change.
But I haven't heard a reason. I haven't heard how this is going to help the neighbors. I mean, I'm not sure why. What are you putting forward that would warrant the grant of this variance? What are you adding to the neighborhood? I mean, I haven't heard anything about that. What is it? What are we all getting in the neighborhood? What are the neighbors from this?
So yeah, I'm not saying that we're presenting anything that's going to benefit the neighbor. The variance request is to allow an oversized structure on this property, and that's purely it. And then I also just want to comment about the potential for what it might become in the future. That to me is not a relevant thing, much like in the previous application where people were bringing up the possible assumption of something becoming an Airbnb use. There is an application before the building department and before the board for a structure for storage and equipment barn. And there's no application to use it as anything else. If in the future, whether John as the owner or a future owner wants to do something different with the barn, they would have to go through the legal process of changing that use. So the application.
The board could also restrict the use of the barn, which will run in the deed. So there could be a restriction forever, but just as a point to keep in mind. But I'm not saying the board's going to do that. I don't know how the board's going to rule on this, but to that point.
I'd like to say something.
Yes.
I'm David Eustace, and I adjoin the property that Mr. Dugan has. And like we said before, I don't really have a problem with him building a bigger barn, but the problem that I do have is we requested to build a barn in the back of ours. I have 2 lots, 1.5 acres apiece, and we were totally denied. And
That this board did that, David?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean that's pretty much the issue that I was bringing up. Is the board doesn't want to be in a position of setting a precedent that would essentially remove. It's rewriting the zoning law to some degree.
Yes.
Through the action of the board. And the zoning law should be rewritten by the village of Nelsonville.
Right.
Just go and put the breezeway in here from the here with the breezeway done.
All the snow.
Right?
And with all due respect, Mr. Rice, I got the impression from 2 of the board members that they don't agree with that, that they're
The
not.
board hasn't voted.
Oh, I know.
The
but-
board members are listening to the discussion. That's the reason we have this discussion. That's why the board exists, the zoning board of appeals exists, because you may make an appeal. And
That was
that's what we're here
prior
to discuss.
the
Yeah.
residents' comments from
Right.
the question that I got.
That's right. That's right. And, I'm one of the two that you're mentioning there. And my comments were before any comments from neighbors. And this has been informative. And I'm glad that we're having the rest of the conversation. Those were some of my initial thoughts on it. We've continued the conversation and we're still continuing the conversation. But that was my initial impulse. I'm not speaking for anyone else. You're talking about two people there, but from my perspective, that's where I was at the beginning of the conversation, not necessarily where I'm at now.
No problem. I appreciate your candor with that. Thank you.
Right. I think there's a lot of sympathy. Everybody wants to have a big barn in their backyard, and there's a lot of, I think there's, it is what it is. The zoning code is written for a lot of different reasons, and one is to keep commercial, to keep these garages small so commercial activities can't go in it. So other activities that beyond storing vehicles can't happen. And in many cases, we say, well, 500 square feet doesn't really work because you can only get 2 cars in there. And I want to have a workbench back there. I want to do something else, or I need a little breathing room. I got a big truck. And so the board looks favorably upon those applications and makes the garages a little bit bigger based on the application and the particular uses. So it's not that the board is inflexible, but to this point, it's a massive, it's 3, like we said, Karen said it better, 3.7 times bigger than it's allowed. So that's just a question here, and to everyone's point, that's why we have these discussions. That's why we hear from the people in the audience, and that's why we hear from the board members, people in for and against, and that's why we're here to hear the appeal, because the zoning can't be written to cover every situation. That's why we're all here. Is there any other comments?
My last comment on this is honestly, I don't care. I don't care if it sounds like it's being kept away. Say what you want. Just say it out loud. However,
Pam, that's you speaking.
I would like to see consistency within the law. That's all. I'm not trying to make Mr. Dugan's life miserable, which apparently his body language is telling me different.
No, yeah, well, we'll see the
Consistency within the law. That's it.
Okay. Any other comments?
William, could I add something in just now?
Yes, please, Bill.
One thing, Pam, I think what I heard from both of you was that it was on an adjacent parcel when you got rejected.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's probably why it was rejected, because it's not accessory to anything. See, accessory buildings have to be part of the, within the parcel itself. So if Mr. Dugan had this on an adjoining parcel, then you would be 100% right. But I'm just thinking out loud from reading the code, and I've been reading it pretty much since we started. It's because your proposed out of the building was on a separate parcel. I'm only guessing.
The accessory building before the primary building. We were going to have.
That's where the problem is.
Built before the house. We were told do the house, then the garage. So that's
the way it happened.
We had plans for both as well.
Right. I just looking at the code and trying to understand why that went that way. And just to both the audience and the board, I have encountered increased sizes above the 500. The question is each person had to present it and make an argument for it. So it's something that the it's up to the applicant to substantiate the size and the need. Beyond that, there have been previous, and I'm familiar with them.
Yes, absolutely, Bill.
And Mr. Chair, I don't know if there's more public comment, but would it be all right if I make a motion to move us into the vote, or is there additional discussion we need?
Oh, I just want to give everybody a last opportunity, Chris, and then I think we should definitely do that, because I think we've heard a lot of great information.
The hour's getting late, and I have places I have to be.
Okay. We're about ready to wrap this up. So do I need to read the 5 elements again? I mean, not for the board. Is everybody familiar with how the board makes these decisions? Would anybody like to hear them, or should we read them and opine on them? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and and to Chris's point, move this meeting along, and the board is going to comment on each element. The village law requires us to make the decision based on this. So, number one, whether the granting of the variance will cause an undesirable change in the character of, yes.
William, was there a second to that motion?
Oh, well, we don't need to make a motion to do that. We just need to make a motion. Oh, you're right. You're absolutely right. We need to take a motion to make today. We're going to vote on this. We could take it after we read the as we normally do.
It's not looking good.
We'll read the elements. We'll talk about it, and then we'll make the motion. I think is that good, Judy?
That's great.
Okay, I think that makes sense. Correct me if I'm wrong, though, anybody.
No, you're good.
Okay, number one, whether granting the variance will cause an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties. Well, we've heard it both ways. Everybody's made good arguments. Anybody else in the board have any thoughts? Okay, I think number two, whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some other feasible method other than a variance. Now, John, you described that there is another way to do this. So the answer to that would be yes, I think, from what I've heard. Does the board have any other thoughts? Whether the requested variance is substantial, we've discussed this quite a bit, and it is substantial. Anyone else have a difference of opinion on the board? Number four, whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood. Could be, from what we've heard tonight, given the everyone's concerned about some of the construction equipment moving in and out of the site. So any other comments from the board? Okay, number five, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, which is consideration shall be relevant to the board's decision, but shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the area variance. Well, in this particular case, it is a self-created condition, or there's nothing built yet. They want to build a substantial garage barn. So, but like the element number 5 says, it's something to think about, but that doesn't necessarily impact our decision. Any other thoughts on that? Okay, so we come to the point where somebody may make a motion to take a vote unless there's any other comments.
Make a motion, we take a vote.
Thank you, Stephen. Okay, I'll vote first. As much as I'd like to grant this variance, I can't, given the precedence it would set for the village. It put us in a bad position moving forward to have this on our record for granted a substantial variance. So my vote would be no. Next, Stephen, I'll call on you.
I vote yes.
Thank you. Harold?
Vote no.
Vote no. Judy?
I vote no.
Okay. Chris?
I vote no. Also appreciate that it sounds like a lot of this coming before us was actually that Mr. Dugan, we've been calling him Mr. Dugan. Is it Mr. Dugan or Mr. Duggan? Sorry?
Dugan?
Oh,
you're on mute. Sorry.
Sorry, it's Duggan.
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 Thank you.
So I do vote no. It sounds like he was trying to do this out of a good interest of trying to do the setbacks and things along those lines, but it does sound like there's a reasonable alternative that is allowable under the code that would meet his needs without the variance. So I vote no.
All right, thank you all. So the vote is 4-1 to deny the application. And as we said before, Pauline will follow up on with the administrative function of the denial, and I'll sign it and we'll send it to you. And we certainly wish you luck with the property.
Thank you.
And I know you'll do the right thing, and you want to come back to us, and maybe you won't need to, but the board is always open to an idea of a smaller, garage there that like Bill has said, we've approved in the past, but unfortunately this one is just too large to pass the test. And so that's the story. But thank you for joining the meeting, and thank you all for everybody in the audience participating. Thank you, Pauline, for setting this meeting up. Thank you, the board members and Bill and everybody for joining in, and we will reconvene at the next meeting. Any final thoughts or questions?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Good luck, guys.
Bye,
Bye-bye. Take care.
Motion to adjourn.
Yes, motion to adjourn.
Second.
We second that. And all right, everybody have a great night. Thank you for closing out the meeting.
All right, hang on.
Okay, take care.